What is up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new Gran Turismo Sport video. Today we're doing Daily Race C around the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and this is a race that is entirely dependent on your fuel usage. Now, this is a scenario I'm not really too familiar with in the F1 games anyway. Like, normally you can just chuck in some extra fuel at the start of the race and not really have to worry about fuel too much. But with that said, I am used to the notion of fuel saving. However, it has come a cropper many a time in my career, running out of fuel before the end of a race. I mean, YouTuber Monaco springs to mind, and even that 20 laps of simulation damage at Monaco springs to mind as well. I mean, just running out of fuel for me kind of runs in the family. I don't have any evidence, but my dad has been caught many times, just like a couple of miles short of a fuel station, thinking he could stretch it. But yeah, I've had to bail him out a couple of times. But anyway, hopefully that won't be the case for me today in this race. So it's very much line ball, this one. You can either go one of two ways. You can save fuel like crazy and make it to the end without making a pit stop, or you can go hell for leather and do a splash and dash towards the end of the race, just to top yourself up and make sure you can continue to drive at 11 tenths in order to make up the difference. And as well, this isn't so simple either, because there's so many different cars with various rates of fuel burn, and I think I only tested two different cars, that being the Lamborghini Huracan, which I'm in right now, and then the Renault Megane. And I believe the Renault had better fuel efficiency than this car that I'm running with at the moment. But for a bit of context, I jumped into this race. I had an idea that this race would be a little bit close on fuel, but I didn't quite understand a huge deal. But I was still keeping an eye on the fuel, and it wasn't really burning all too much, so I wasn't really worried about it until maybe halfway through the race, where I was... Oh, goodbye, Ferrari. It wasn't until around this point here where I saw maybe the fuel does need to be looked after a little bit. You can see we've got 3.4 laps of fuel remaining. But what was putting me off was, for every lap that I did, I wasn't burning a lap of fuel. I was burning less than a lap of fuel. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I can get to the end, even though it says only 3 laps remaining. You can see the fuel is it was at 50%. So we've gone this far. We've gone 4 laps without fuel saving. With a bit of fuel saving now, I think I can get to the end. So we'll see when we get to the end of the race if we've potentially left this a little bit late. In an ideal world, I would have saved a little bit more fuel at the start of the race to make this back end a little bit easier. But I'm confident that we can get to the end now. We're going to commit to saving fuel, and we'll see where we go from there. We did get an unfortunate penalty for no reason whatsoever, so that is wonderful. But we'll just have to deal with it. Playing with the engine modes, turning it down to leaner mixes in order to not burn too much fuel. And I was doing that at non-crucial areas of the track. So Sector 1 was an important place to save fuel. I think it's the best place to save fuel. So that's what I was utilizing. But then you can see here, we've got ourselves in a bit of trouble. We've got 2 laps to go, and we have a 0.7 of a lap. We now have 0.2 of a lap of fuel remaining. Even in lean mix 6, we were still burning about half a lap of fuel per lap. And unsurprisingly, we come around on the final one and run out of fuel right now. So at this point, we are literally just cruising to the finish. And we're coming up to the uphill section where we're probably going to die. But no, our engine kicks in. For some reason, the engine was out of business going downhill, but coming back uphill, it kicked back in again. So it was last place. Absolute disaster. More than a minute off the pace. We couldn't even finish the race. We didn't have that much time to get to the end, but the result still would have been the same. But anyway, we move on to the next race, and this is qualifying in between sessions. We improved by about 8 tenths, so this should hopefully give me a better starting position for this next race. We're in the Renault Megane 2011 version, And this car, like I said, is better on fuel. The starting position, though, isn't that much better than where we started off from the last one. And again, the rolling start means that you're just so far off the pace by the time the race properly gets underway. The difference from like first to last, I think, is about 16 seconds. You can see here for us in P17 it's 12, and that's a big margin to give up when I'm not overly fast around here anyway. Since getting into A class in my driver rating, I found things to slow down a little bit more, especially when I go to new circuits. I feel like I'm massively on the back foot, so I have to be on the pace, I have to come to a track and car combination which I'm fairly familiar with. I at least need to know the circuit in order to be on the pace. I have driven at some other circuits like Kyoto recently, and where was it? That place down in the south of England where they have... it's Goodwood Festival of Speed. Yeah, the Goodwood circuit. I raced around there. I was horrifically slow around there. So I have to, right now, race at tracks that I know. Because it's just a nightmare if I'm racing somewhere where I've just got no idea where I'm going. So, moral of the story is I need to practice a whole lot more in A class now that I'm here. The amount of finer details you need to get on top of just require that extra bit of time to really be competitive. But anyway, this race, we're P17. I think we started off decently, then we dropped a couple of positions. This GTR got in front of me. And yeah, we're kind of stuck behind these two guys who are more focused on battling each other than really sticking in the slipstream. We gave the GTR a bit of a thump into that left-hander, 2-second time penalty for us to serve on the next lap, which will be a slowdown. We served that, and we've actually caught back up to this next group of cars. So we're now in P15. We're catching back up to the GTR. So our race pace is pretty good. It's just our qualifying position is absolutely horrendous, which means we have it all to do in the race to really make up the difference. We get up the inside of the Porsche Cayman. Is it a Cayman? I'm not sure. I'm not going to call that. Anyway, lap 5. I think we're in a decent position in terms of fuel. You can see here we've caught up to this weird-looking Citroen, which is probably one of the most annoying cars to fight in a scenario like this, because that Citroen is pretty speedy in a straight line, but it's absolutely horrendous in the corners. And so it means that it makes life pretty difficult for us when it comes to overtaking. You can see here we got the inside into the final chicane. You can absolutely cheese that final chicane, by the way, for track limits. And that's another thing as well, especially when I come to a circuit that I don't know. I don't know what the track limits are. And so I see people cheesing corners left, right, and center, and I'm here being a good boy, losing time hand over fist. But anyway, this Citroen is very annoying because I can't get past him in a straight line. I have to do it in the corners, and that's what I'm endeavoring to do into turn 1. Unfortunately, I gave him a bit of a push, which gave him momentum, and it looks like we're finally going to go around the outside here, but the Citroen being very annoying with its understeer and just pushing me off the circuit. So it's delaying the overtake. We've lost slipstream to the next group of cars. We're currently in P7, which is pretty good, but a lot of people around this point in the race are making their stop, so has given us a bit of track position temporarily, but there's a lot of faster cars coming behind us now who don't need to worry about fuel saving. We still do need to manage the fuel a little bit to get to the end. A couple more people make their stops. That promotes us into the top 5 now with 3 laps to go in this Nürburgring Group C, Daily Race C race. And yeah, we're just continuing to stick to the game plan. Lean mix 6 through the first sector, the twisty part, where you really don't need straight line speed anyway, just utilizing those F1 game tactics. And again, coming into any braking zone or any non-acceleration zone, straight into lean mix 6. It's the most efficient way to utilize your fuel. So that's what we're going to do. At this point, I think I actually miscalculated how many laps of racing there was left. I actually need to save for another lap, and so yes, I've got myself in a little bit of strife. So we're gonna have to save even more fuel, and we're now at the mercy of the cars behind us, which are coming at us thick and fast. We get overtaken by the Lexus RCF. This Mercedes SLS is going to fly past us here on the straight as well. This car isn't great in a straight line. So it means that getting overtaken can be quite easy if I'm not running in Mix 1 as it is. And so, yeah, it's just the way it goes, really. I've got to save a little bit more fuel. It was imperative that I didn't lose any more positions than what I've already lost. Like, I've let these two guys go, and the intention is that I'll just save some fuel stuck behind them in the slipstream. It'll allow me to run at a decent pace while still saving fuel. There's no way I can save the amount of fuel that I am saving and keep up a decent pace if I was in clear air. So just utilizing these guys as best I can, just trying to hold on while still saving a decent amount of fuel. We now head on to the last lap of the race. We still need to save a little bit through this first sector, but after we get out of this section, we should be able to go hell for leather to the end of the race. And you can see the Mercedes up ahead has a time penalty, which he'll be serving coming on to the next straight. So we'll be in a position where we can hopefully get P5, and then we'll be lining up the Lexus to get his position, and that should mean P5 for us in this race. So here we go. Mercedes gets slowed down. However, he doesn't lose the position, and now it's going to be battle central for these two again. Can we get the Lexus? Trying to get a nice exit. That's the most frustrating thing, is I'm good in the corners, but I'm not really close enough on the straights to really do anything about it. So I need to get a really nice exit, keep it in lean mix, not lean mix 1. The annoying thing is on F1 games, mix 1 is the worst fuel mix, but on Gran Turismo, mix 1 is the best fuel mix. Anyway, slipstream. Let's get a nice exit here. The Renault is pretty good at high speed, and we're utilizing that to good effect. But it's not really falling into our favor, is it? The Lexus is pulling away on the straight, and so we're going to have to pull off the mother of all dive bombs potentially to get a position here into the braking zone of the final chicane. And we've absolutely murdered the Lexus. And to go with that, we still ran out of fuel on the final straight. The Renault Megane behind us ran into the back of us, gave us the extra momentum we needed to hold on to P6. So in the most fair and legal manner possible, we have gained 11 positions to get P6 in the Nürburgring Grand Prix. We move on to another race. Again, we find a massive chunk of time in our one and only qualifying lap. That is, it's always 5.4, but again, it's still the back of the grid. I have found 3 seconds of qualifying time since the start of the video, and we are still starting at the back of these damn races. What is going on? This must be a really high lobby, because the people who are doing 204s is just insane pace. I don't know how they are pulling that time out of the bag. But again, we move on. We are getting a better feel of how to manage this race. We're getting a better feel of how to maximize the pace around this particular circuit. The more practice we do get, the more of a leveler it is, I guess, against the rest of the field. We just got to keep on grinding and see where we end up at the end of the day. Anyway, we're saving quite a bit more fuel than what we have in previous races, so it should mean that we're potentially in a better spot come the end of the race. I have done the calculations, and I just have, you know, just done my research and seen that making a pit stop is slower than fuel saving, and I feel like the best car for fuel saving is the Renault Megane. It's just the downside of this is it's hard to gain position in a car like this. So when we are stuck behind people, I guess we should utilize that time to save fuel. And that's maybe what I didn't do as well in previous races. And maybe you can arguably say that I'm not doing it maybe as well in this race either. So maybe when I do have a chance to have some clear air, as I pull off a worldy overtake around the outside into the final chicane, maybe I should be burning more fuel when I've got clear air, and then when I do catch up to someone, then do the mega saving of the fuel. That's something I probably could have done in hindsight. But this is actually our final race of the video as well. And I feel like this was our best chance to get a good result. You can see we're 25 seconds off the leader of the race, but that Italian up front has to make a pit stop. And so that will even things up a little bit, you would have to say. Catching up to another Renault. We're now in P8, so we are making sizable gains towards the front of the field. Like I said, the front couple of guys are stopping, and it'll be interesting to see if they drop in behind us. You can see the race leader is in, and he's got 10% of fuel on board in his car. Now, as we head into the final chicane, you'll see the guy in P3 also makes a stop, or P2 now. He's got 3% of fuel left. So he was really struggling to get to this point in the race. Yeah, he'll have to put in extra fuel, and he might even drop in behind us. So it'll be very interesting to see where this all shakes up at the end of the race. We're catching up to P4, and that'd be simply an amazing result. Considering we started in P19 in what I think is the second split, the second highest split on the game. I think at peak hour it was like 8 PM. So I'll take that. If I can get P4, I'd be absolutely ecstatic. But we have to get there first, and that is a lot easier said than done against some pretty good players. And you know, I have to get there, period, without running out of fuel. So we'll see. Heading on to the final lap of the race now, and we are just on 1 lap of fuel remaining. I'm still going to save a little bit of fuel through this first sector to make sure I can push towards the back end of this race. You can see the guy in P5 in the Renault has a 5/10 slowdown penalty. So, I don't know, we might be able to get him. The Lambo at the front of this queue has the best straight line speed, so he might be quite difficult to overtake in this race. But if I can get these next 2 cars and get a top 5, I'd be well happy with that. So here we go. Renault going defensive. He's actually moving off to the side to make sure he doesn't make contact with anyone as he unghosts from the slowdown penalty. That is P6 for us. And now, with half a lap to go, we're going to see if we can set up this move for P5, or hell, P4 if we are very, very lucky. Only 14.5 seconds away from the lead of the race, by the way. And when you consider we lost, well, we were 16 seconds off the lead simply because of our starting position. This race could have been tasty if we started better. But anyway, here we go. Final couple of corners now to negotiate, and this Renault is looking pretty darn vulnerable. As Daniel Ricciardo says, he likes them vulnerable, and I do too. Here we go, slipstream. No DRS on this back straight, which I would have absolutely loved to utilize. The German is going slightly defensive into the final chicane. That doesn't matter to us. Braking as late as we possibly dare. And the German just about holds on through the final chicane, though. Can we get him up the inside? A little sneak attack into the final corner. No, we're going to switch to the outside and get a better drive. But then at the midpoint, we get a bit of a touch from the Czech driver. And that is unbelievable. 1 second slowdown penalty for getting pushed wide. Which means we end up in 8th place. What a disaster. And even still, we finished closer to the race leader at the end of the race compared to where we started. Here's the gap at the start, 16.1 seconds. And at the end, we closed him in by a 10th. And so, with that said, I would like to say that I wouldn't have won the race by a 10th if I started at the front with those guys. What I am saying is that I actually would have won by a second. I'm joking. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you need to see plenty more racing game videos. Gran Turismo, keep up these daily race C combinations. In fact, I embrace more longer races on the platform because it just opens up strategy, and overall I feel like the racing is just that much more enjoyable. The A and B races, yes, they're fun for a quick little go here or there, but I feel like the truly engaging and fun races are those longer ones where strategy is involved. So, I don't know, if you watch my videos, longer races, please. Anyway, that's it from me. Goodbye.